What is up, Scyushi Squad? We are back in with some more Trove, and today we are finally starting the new series. Lots of you guys have been requesting this. I'm sorry that it took so long. More importantly, I'm sorry that during my more recent class tutorials, I didn't end up showing you guys realistic gameplay of them at the end game. I just didn't think about it. You know, I was more so focused on telling you the stats that you go for, how the character operates without actually giving you an example. So that's what this is for. This is going to be the 35k series, or in the case of the Shadowhunter, we're at 36,000 power rank. What I'm going to be doing in these videos is I'm going to be spending 5 minutes in U10 and then 5 minutes in Delves so that you guys can see a realistic comparison of how every character in the game is going to end up acting when they're at the end game. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Spoiler alert, my buddy Nintendo Joe, his YouTube channel, he actually has like an hour-long video or something where he actually already has all of the characters at 35k, so hey, you guys could check that out. But if you want to see a real man do it, I'm kidding, of course. Much love to Joe. Okay, so with my Shadowhunter, I got pretty lucky. You know, I got a C4 face, C4 hat, C3 bow. I wish I could have got a C4 bow, but whatever. The ring that I'm rocking is just a crit hit one, which I technically don't need, but it doesn't matter. And then the banner is just a easy peasy one that gives me 300 light. The ally I'm going to be rocking is going to be Jingles, which is pretty much the best one for Shadowhunter just because it's got the light physical damage and it's got increased cooldown reduction, so we'll get to use our ult a little bit more. Realistically, you do want to be using your Shadowhunter's ult, but it just, I don't know, it's not really the best. I always use Death Defying, and then I use Martial Emblem just so that we have that extra damage, and then I use Unyielding just for survivability, even though in this case, let me actually swap over to Trailblazing because that's probably going to end up being better. We could swap to Trailblazing and then swap Martial off to Chromatic, and then we would probably end up doing pretty good. But you can see all my stats, and then if you want to know my gems and stuff like that, I honestly already show them in my class tutorial video. So and before we get started with today's video, I gotta let you guys know, if you are new to Trove, you can use that sign up link down in the description, and then anything you end up buying out of the cash shop, I'll make a percentage of that sale. It's an awesome way you can support me by literally just playing the game, buying things that you would otherwise buy anyways, like that Sweet 16 pack. Or some of the other cosmetic packs that we've had more recently. But anyways, I sincerely appreciate those of you that have actually gone that extra mile and done that. It does help me to pay the bills. So thanks GameAgo for the opportunity, and thanks you folks for actually doing it, because it really means a lot to me. Anyways, let's get on with the video. So the thing with the Shadowhunter is he's actually going to end up being a really good character for just normal end game grinding. Whoopsie daisy, I want to have gone down my inventory. Because he'll actually, you know, the character's not as weak as we all say that it is. There's definitely characters that are a lot weaker, but the problem with Shadowhunter is that he just doesn't really, like, you can literally take your same amount of gems and stuff and just swap them over to Neon Ninja, for example, and you're just going to end up being better. The biggest thing that I would say Shadowhunter needs for his rework, if they ever end up doing such a thing, is either to have a little bit more damage just because of it needs to compensate. Obviously those were just kill 30 enemies, so they're super duper weak. Either that, or its ult would need to work a lot more consistently and have less of a cooldown, because the ult, as you can see, actually does the max damage in the game. It's one of the strongest ults in the game. It does over max damage, actually. That's just the maximum amount of damage numbers that can end up being displayed. But the problem is that you rarely, like, you can see that we're still on cooldown with our ult by the time we end up getting to the next dungeon. I think a very quick, easy fix for Shadowhunter would be if we ended up having the ability to just use our ultimate ability pretty much every dungeon. I think that would really where is this last idiot? I think that would really compensate and make the Shadowhunter's damage really keep up with a lot of characters. The other thing too is if they wanted to really overwork the character, can you please put bombs in my hotbar? Thank you. I think it would be great if our shots actually phased through enemies. So ranged attacks in the game don't actually phase through enemies, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the strongest characters in the game, like ranged attacks, are generally stronger than physical, and obviously you can keep your distance. But the difference is that unless you're using one of the characters that has a little more AoE, has a little bit more crowd control, they kind of fall off. That's why, you know, like someone like Faye Trickster, which does do considerable damage, doesn't end up doing a better job than some other ranged characters and even some other melee characters, just because of the single target damage of the class itself. Anyways, to my argument, I think that bows should be different than stabs and guns. I think it would be a lot cooler and make a lot more sense to me. I don't know why, maybe just because of other games that I've played. I think it would make a lot more sense for a bow to pierce through an enemy, wouldn't it? And I think that that would be another thing that could really make Shadowhunter stand apart from the rest, because then suddenly you would be able to shoot through enemies and clear crowds of enemies, because one of the reasons why Shadowhunter just isn't that great is, again, just because of the fact that our shots aren't phasing through enemies. That's just my 2 cents towards it anyways. Just very quick, very easy, like, oh, here's something you could just change in 2 seconds and the character would actually be viable. But I mean, there's definitely a more elegant solution out there. But anyway, Shadowhunter has always been my favorite character in the game. There's just something about the style and the look of the character, and I just love the classroom ability. It single-handedly changes the character from just being absolutely useless to something that you can, again, definitely main. Like, I want to get the point across that it's not like the Shadowhunter is weak by any means. It's just that there's other characters that are stronger. Yeah, that's a much better example. So we got a couple more minutes to end up doing these, but you can already see that we are just, you know, U10 is just no match for the Shadowhunter, all right? But that right there, the whole point is that that enemy died in like 1.5, maybe 2 seconds. Another character would have killed it in less time. That's the thing, believe it or not. Like, especially if we were playing on Vanguard or Neon Ninja. Now, I mean, by comparison, Neon Ninja is one of those characters where I just always say, if you literally take all of your gems and swap it to the Neon Ninja, you're gonna be outputting more damage. But the difference between like Shadowhunter, Neon Ninja and stuff is that Neon Ninja has a lot of uptime, or he has to get ready, you know, because you got to build up your shurikens and stuff. I should not be doing that while we're on a time limit. I'm sorry. Force a habit. But if I end up using this and then we trigger our Pyro Disc, if Pyro Disc would ever trigger, please, or my Raptor Berserker, and then I pop a flash, you can see we actually got considerable movement speed. But the reason that I always just use the Knight subclass ability is because the higher the power rank on your Knight character ends up giving you more movement speed on a mount. So that's why I always just use Gonda for the end game, just because it's really easy to end up going through dungeons and stuff. But anyways, to get my point across, you can see Shadowhunter is perfectly fine for the end game. You know, it works very, very well, at least in Geo Surface, because now let's actually move on to the Delves, where you'll get to see that the character probably is not going to end up doing as hot. Most of all, I'm talking high delve numbers, so you're gonna have to give me a minute to actually get to depth, let's say 115 and up, just because depth 115 is when U10 difficulty starts. So let me just get that ready, guys. Well, this is actually pretty convenient. So my private delve portals actually start at depth 116, so that's actually perfect. Now Shadowhunter, this is where the character really starts to fall off, just as far as the damage is concerned. We're gonna keep Martial, but I'm also gonna be swapping back to Unyielding, just because these enemies usually end up hitting like a truck. We should be okay for the first few delve floors at least, but the real problem starts to come into place when we get to the full-on, like, the actual strong delves, like 120, 125, which we might not have time to get to today. But you can see we're still doing fine, you know? We'll see what ends up happening when we end up getting to the boss, because that could end up being a little bit of a problem. But I kind of was hoping that this would be a little bit more of a powerful example. But I guess it just being U10 enemies, these are actually pretty weak, because none of them really have like any physical damage reduction or buffs or anything. I mean, they got their buffs, just not very good ones. But generally speaking, like for delves, I prefer using the characters that are just a lot easier for bunching up enemies together, and Shadowhunter just doesn't really do that, as you can see. However, you do have the range, so it, you know, definitely compensates, and it's kind of just pick your poison at this point, you know, like generally speaking, most players don't really like the delves, at least I would say on average, right? Myself included. I used to like the delves. I like the geo caves. I don't like the delves. I just don't find them to be particularly interesting or entertaining. All the rooms kind of just look the exact same no matter what biome you're in. But I mean, that's okay. The point is that you pick whatever character you want, you're still in the delves. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to get at. So for me personally, I always actually use Tomb Raider or Draco and stuff like that. Some of the best characters in delves are Tomb Raider, Draco, Ice Sage, Gunslinger, just as quick examples. There's other characters that fit in there as well. All right, let's see how this stupid parakeet is going to operate, dude. Is he gonna be strong? Yeah, see, there you go. That's what I was more so expecting from Shadowhunter. And the thing is, when you start getting to the much stronger bosses, you can't really compensate just because of the fact that these guys not only hit so hard that you're constantly draining flasks, but other characters have a lot more survivability just because you'll actually throw your minions down. And unfortunately, these bosses cannot get stunned by our snare traps. So this is a perfect example right here for you guys to see. This is why you don't really use the Shadowhunter in the delves. I mean, if you've got like other characters doing the damage, okay, sure. But this right here, this is a prime example of what eventually ends up happening with normal enemies as well. And as you saw, we're defeating the normal enemies no problem. Like, this guy could have some pretty nutty buffs, okay? I'm not denying that. Let's actually take a quick peek and see. Deploy flamethrower turret, okay. Reduce darkness, which... Wait, reduced darkness means that it would be easier for us to kill him. Takes additional damage from players, really? And then Trovian attacks heal them for a percentage of their max health. So that's why he was taking so long to die, just because he was kind of healing at the same time we were doing damage. But still, I guarantee you, if I swapped to one of the top tier delve characters, that boss would have been dead like cottage cheese. Like, he would have just been squished, okay? He would have been destroyed absolutely right away. So anyways, I thought we would have a little bit more time to end up going into more depth, but I think that that was actually a perfect example. So I think we're good, gamer. I think we're good. Hopefully you found this video helpful as well as possibly entertaining. I am gonna slowly work on doing videos with all the characters. Again, my Shadowhunter I conveniently have at 36k power rank. Most of my other characters I'm gonna try to get to that 35k threshold, which is gonna be a little bit difficult, most of all for these guys, because I don't really have a Crystal 3 spear, let alone a C4 spear or anything like that. So, some of my other characters I don't have C4 gear, but you know, the point is they can still end up being pretty powerful. So thanks for watching. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and I hope that you guys have a great day. And I hope that this is something that you guys are going to be looking forward to see your class in the future. Sign on and stay epic, gamers.